Hey everybody, you've reached EDU Diva, also known as Dr. J. I'm here today to talk to you about the Belle Collective. This is season 6, episode 5, titled Biloxi Blues. Now, if you are not familiar with the Mississippi Gulf Coast, it's titled Biloxi Blues because they take a trip down to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And on the Mississippi Gulf Coast is where you'll find Gulfport, you'll find Biloxi, Pass Christian, which is where Carrie is actually originally from. I don't think she said it directly in the show yet, but she's from Pass Christian, Mississippi. Ocean Springs, Moss Point, the list goes on. But it's like a stretch of land on the coast. And right there by the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to title it Mexico because that's what we know it as. And it's an hour from New Orleans. So it was great to see her down there kind of setting up the crawfish boil because that is something that we are synonymous with is seafood, specifically shrimp and crawfish. And every time I'm down there, I usually always get like a crawfish boil. You know, I don't buy crawfish here normally because in Metro Atlanta, because it's not really known for that. You know, we're known for chicken wings up here, but down there, definitely seafood. It's accessible. It's normally less expensive. So I always have to get it down there because it's fresh and it's right on time. So she sets it up. Letitia shows up. Letitia kind of looking weird because Carrie's trying to teach her how to, you know, pinch the tail and suck it and, you know, pull it out and all that kind of stuff. Trying to put her up on game when it comes to that. And then Marie Monroe shows up and Carrie starts pouring the crawfish out on the table. And, you know, Letitia and Dr. Marie Monroe are looking like they've never seen crawfish before in their lives, and which I could kind of understand because you'll find a lot of people who, if you're not directly from the coast, and I mean the Mississippi Gulf Coast, Louisiana, you're not familiar with things like, in terms of eating it all the time, like gumbo and the crawfish, seafood boils, all of that type of stuff. So it's kind of interesting that they were kind of like, ooh, what, almost like, what's that? But I can kind of see it because if you're not from there, you're not eating it all the time. Now, Marie starts talking about there being country, you know, calling it being country, doing all that with the crawfish. And Selena ends up showing up. And then Carrie pulls out mayo. Now, I will be honest with you. I have never pulled out mayonnaise and bread and had, like, I guess, a crawfish sandwich. So that's even new for me. Because y'all have to put me up on game when it comes to that, my fellow Mississippians, because I'm like, I've never had like a crawfish sandwich. That's never been something that I've had. So that was kind of, I would have been like, what? When did that happen? You know, I'm used to eating my crawfish and my shrimp and all that, you know, right there in the little platter, not adding it to any type of sandwich or mayonnaise. So that was kind of crazy. And they were looking at her like, what is going on? Because she had put the gloves on and everything and started digging in the mayonnaise. And I was like, what? Now, Carrie says that she did invite Latrice and Tambra to, I guess, the Mississippi Gulf Coast because she wanted to plan a trip. So she told everybody that she's inviting them to go down to Mississippi Gulf Coast. And I think I said that they were on the Gulf Coast, but they were actually in Jackson by the riverbed and everything. So they weren't directly on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but she was inviting them down there. So she said she did invite Latrice and Tambra, and she said that she wanted to keep the peace, basically. Wants everybody to get together. Selena says she's actually spoken to Latrice because Letitia was basically asking, has she spoken to her? She said she did, and they show a flashback, and Latrice said it wasn't her place to basically get involved with it. I tend to disagree. I think that if you had any inkling of this going on, Latrice, knowing the state of you and Letitia's relationship in the past, that you should have said something, at least said, hey, this is my friend over here. You're my friend. I've known her for over 20 years, but I do want to let you know that this is what's going on. And I think that that should have been said. Now, Latrice says she's still processing everything. And then, of course, you know, well, she said that Latrice is processing everything. That's what Selena said about Latrice. And then Carrie, of course, continues to go on about everybody's invited to the Gulf Coast. And she talks about the beauty of the coast and how it's a perfect spot for Letitia to kick off her brunch. And Letitia says she needs as much help as she can from Carrie. So I think that that's a good connection for Letitia to have with getting help from Carrie when it comes to the brunch. Because obviously Carrie owns 3 brunch restaurants. Now, we get to a scene with Tambra. Now, we know that Tambra is like a friend of the show, just how everything operates. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know what's going on, but I know that Tambra is literally not someone who is involved in the chaos and has the cameras involved in her life. She kind of was getting it involved in her life in terms of the cameras being around her consistently, like the first and the second season, but of course it's backed off. I think some of that is due to her having a baby, but I was very, very surprised. And Tambra shows up on the screen, you know, fresh face, no makeup on, has her hair kind of pulled up in a little messy bun, and she's there with London Simone. That's the name of her baby. And the baby looks just like Damon. She is so cute though, but she looks just like Damon in the sense of her having just his features, and they are so, so cute. I think she's a good combination of Tambra and Damon, but she definitely looks like her daddy. And you know that it definitely is something that is happening nowadays. You know, the babies are coming out looking like their dads, but they're always coming out looking like the very, very pretty versions of their dads. So she is very, very precious and is so cute. So I'm glad she was able to show her baby and felt comfortable with doing that. So she did that, talks about motherhood, talks about how London Simone is not in daycare, and that she really does not want to put her in daycare. She understands that she needs to socialize, but she is just not there. And I feel like you do what's best for you. I do think that there's at a point where you do need to let your child socialize, because you don't want to put your child in a predicament where they are not able to socialize very well. They're either awkward or they're too aggressive because they don't know how to react to certain situations. So I do believe that that's something that you definitely have to monitor, but you do what's best for you and your child. Now, Damon ends up coming in, and she talks about how he took up another job managing the lounge, and that he's always tired. He's gone usually from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they start talking about finances. And Tambra says she's very open with finances, but Damon is not. And so she was, you know, prepping for her baby before her baby was even existed. And because that's just how she is. She's a preparer. She's one of those people that likes to understand what's going on. And she said financially, she says that Damon just is not open with that. And she thinks that he's hiding something, and says that they're totally different when it comes to that. And she wants to know what's going on with the money. And, you know, Damon is basically like, you know, have you ever wanted for anything? And I'm like, I understand what he's saying. She may not have wanted for anything, but she still needs to know what's going on. Y'all have to communicate. You never want to be in a situation where something happens and the other doesn't know what's going on. Now, I did see some other content reviewers basically saying that it seemed like Damon didn't live there. And I don't really know the situation, because obviously Tambra doesn't bring Damon around, even with Tambra being around the limited amount of time that she is. But hopefully they're still together. They have the beautiful baby. So hopefully they're together, and they're just being kind of private about it. Now, after that scene, we get to Latrice. So Latrice is at home. Again, Latrice has a beautiful, beautiful home. She lives like kind of on the outskirts of Jackson. I'm not sure what area it is. I think it may be like 30 minutes on the outskirts. Not super, super far, but, you know, enough to kind of be away and kind of be in an area where I'm sure she was able to kind of build the home that she wanted. And she says that her and Letitia have not spoken at all. And she did get an invite from Carrie to come to the Gulf Coast for a girls trip. And that's what she's saying in her confessional. And then Cliff comes in and she reminds him that she's going to Biloxi. Latrice says, she said, where you been? And she was like, what's going on? Basically says, hey, where you been? Did you get somebody pregnant? I'm like, why is that the first thing you saying? Okay. Because if I was Cliff, I would be really like, but it doesn't seem too far-fetched. So, you know, okay. But that wouldn't be the first thing that I would say to my husband, okay? And maybe they joke like that in a sense. I know that they, you know, they have an interesting relationship, but I just was like, oh, okay. So Cliff mentions that he wants to do something special for her. He brings her into the kitchen, and he has like a meal prepared for her. I guess someplace he got something catered, and they sit down and start having dinner, lunch, whatever, maybe breakfast. I didn't even really pay attention to what type of food it was. And then Latrice asked him, has he spoken to Glenn? And he says, no, he hasn't spoken to Glenn, you know, since that situation. And, you know, him and Glenn are ace boon coons, you know, they are tight. So that shows you that it's some fracture in that relationship. Now, Latrice says she knows Amanda's not malicious, and, you know, she spoke to Amanda, they met up, and I just feel like it's not the fact that I feel that Amanda is malicious, but she had an intent behind it. And the way she acted was like Letitia did something to her. And you were supposed to be cool with this lady, regardless of what may have happened in the past with her and Latrice. You admitted and she said that y'all were cool. Y'all were always very cordial. Y'all spoke. Y'all had good rapport with each other when y'all were around each other. And for this to be going on, it's almost like you reveled in the fact that Glenn was messing with you as if you were better than Letitia. And I don't like stuff like that, because you shouldn't treat another woman like that. That's just how I feel. The lady didn't do anything to you, so why are you acting like that towards her? Leave that lady's marriage alone and go on about your day. And what I mean by leave it alone, I don't mean that you don't say what happened, but the way you went about it, bringing it up, like this, like, you know, like somebody was attacking you at the event at Latrice's home. No, you went around about it the wrong way. And then Cliff said, "Can I ask you a question?" And she said, "Yeah." He said, "Why you got that ball gown on in the house?" And that had me cracking up laughing, because it was just out the blue. And she did have this gown on, black and white gown on. And she was like, "But I'm a housewife. You know, I'm getting, you know, I'm basically, I'm wealthy. I'm you know, I'm the it girl, you know." And so that was so funny. And she says, "Well, what are you going to do when I'm away? Are you going to stay at the condo? Or are you going to be here at the house?" And he's like, basically, he's going to stay at the condo. And she was just like, "Well, when I get back, you better be at the house." And I'm just like, oh, Lord, y'all. I know for me, my husband, that wouldn't work. You're not just, I don't care how far away you are, you're going to bring your butt home. That's all I know. We're not going to be doing it back and forth. I could understand once in a while, if, you know, you're working on things and you got to be up the next day to be right there. I could maybe understand that, but no, we're not doing that. And if you are going to stay, then I'm going to be right there with you, laying in the bed with you. How about that? Now, so after that, Matt and Carrie go and look at the house that the girls are going to be staying at. And Carrie's like, "Ooh, this is, you know, we're going into the mansion." And I'm thinking in my head, though, I love you, Carrie boo, but that is not a mansion. That's a nice Airbnb, but it's not a mansion. Now, there are mansions on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, you know, definitely, but that particular home was not a mansion, but it was nice. And they go and look at the house and see what they need to set up. And they see how many rooms it is and how the setup is in terms of the beds. And Matt was like, because they were discussing about how there's not that many enough, you know, rooms for everybody individually. And Matt is like, "You need to put Latrice and Letitia in this room together in the bunk beds." And I knew that was going to happen. And you need to do it based upon who has the worst attitude. And Carrie said that situation is going to be a hot mess. And what I want everybody to realize, too, people keep on saying, "Why don't we keep on getting houses that don't have enough rooms?" I'm going to be honest with you guys, and this is from me. I'm not this world traveler where I've been everywhere, but I have traveled, you know, frequently in different places and looked at different things for Airbnbs. A lot of these homes, they're all set up like that. Have you guys noticed that? If you really look, please look around. Look at like homes, even like 11 bedroom homes, 12 bedrooms, those type of homes. They always got it kind of set up in an odd way where, you know, let's just say you bring in 13 people, then there's only going to be 12 bedrooms, and then one of the bedrooms is going to be bunk beds or something like that. It's always set up kind of weird. So it's not the easiest to just find like all these separate rooms for, you know, a bunch of people that may be coming on a trip. So I think for us as viewers, we may not be thinking about it logistically, but that's something that you may want to be cognizant about in terms of understanding, like, it's a lot. These homes are not set up just as fluently when it comes to all these different rooms, okay? Now, Tambra and Selena are meeting up. They're meeting up in like this parking lot area. I guess they're getting ready to meet with the other girls, and they're basically like the people that are rounding up the girls together. So they're like the leaders / hostesses of the trip. And Tambra says she's looking forward to going out of town. Selena is too. Tambra says she hopes to stay out of the drama. And Tambra's normally not in drama, I will say that. Normally if drama happens, it's somebody just decided to bring up her name and bring her in it. And she says it's not her responsibility to tell Letitia about her husband. And everybody shows up, and then Letitia shows up, and everybody's kind of looking awkward. I'm like, why y'all looking awkward? I guess because they're trying to see how Letitia's going to respond. And then Letitia says she doesn't know if she can continue to be the bigger person, I guess because Latrice is there. And they get on the bus, And then Marie asked Letitia how's Glenn. She was like, it's hard, she basically still been sleeping in the baby's room and all this other kind of stuff. They eventually get to the house, and Carrie greets them there and comes out with the Mardi Gras beads because, the Mississippi Gulf Coast, that whole area, Mobile, New Orleans, is known for Mardi Gras. And she comes out with Mardi Gras beads. It was so funny because Letitia, even Dr. Marie Monroe was like, oh, yes, this is it. She is high, what do you want to call it? She's basically giving us everything as a host. They were like super, super excited. And so that was funny. But, I'm glad that they appreciated what she did. I didn't find it to be like this exuberant type of experience of her, greeting them and giving them Mardi Gras beads. But, I think it was nice. It was cool. They walk in, they have swag bags and everything like that. And Carrie lets them know that they're going to a gator farm. And they're kind of like, what? We're going to a gator farm. And so they kind of looking like, what's going on? So she ends up letting them know there's 4 rooms at the top. Carrie, of course, has a room at the bottom. So it's, I guess, a total of 5 rooms. And so Carrie's going to have that room because she is the main host. And she lets them know that they're going to pick rooms by the oldest to youngest. Selena is the oldest. She's 49. She goes first. And I think it's Marie Monroe, and then Tambra, and then it's Letitia and Latrice that are the youngest. I didn't catch their exact ages. I'm trying to figure out how old Letitia is. But they were like, basically like, we're going to room together. And it was just like weird. So they didn't really show like the details of them having conversations once they kind of went through that particular scene. And the next thing we know, the next scene shows them at the gator farm. And they're on the boat, with the fan and all that stuff. I forgot what you call it, but they were on that boat. And Selena seems to be having a good time. And then, the rest of them kind of like, and Carrie, of course, too, is having a good time. And so they do that. And then once they end that particular tour, they go and they hold like a small gator, and Selena holds it. And I thought that was really cute. And then Carrie lets them know that they're going to be going straight to the restaurant, her friend's restaurant down there that's called 11 Lounge, which I've heard of before. I've never been there, but I've heard good things. I've seen a lot of things because, I follow a lot of things on Facebook and everything with 11. So I've seen it. And she says that they're basically going to go there for their dinner. And so they show up to the restaurant, and the owner comes out. His name is Kenny Williams. And Letitia says that, ooh, and he greets Carrie, of course. And she's like, yeah, this is my friend Kenny. And then Letitia's like, oh, you are really that girl down here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I just thought it was funny because I'm just like, y'all are really excited and hyping everything up. So, but to each his own. But, so they bring out oysters and, raw oysters, and I love oysters. It's a Southern thing when it comes to some of the girls. We do love our seafood. But Marie Monroe was basically like, I'm going to be hungry because I ain't eating this. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, they're going to bring out more food, Marie. You're going to eat more than just that. If you don't want to eat that, there's other food that can be prepared that you can eat at that restaurant. Now, Letitia thanks Carrie for jumping in to help her with the brunch, and Carrie's like, no problem, that's what I'm here for. And I saw some other content creators were basically saying that like Letitia always needs help with her brunches, but I'm just like, you do what you need to do. Maybe she needs this help to continue to build upon what she already kind of knows. But she is going through her little situation, so getting help I think is not a problem. Now, Letitia then says, let's talk about the pool party. So everybody's like, oh, dun, dun, dun. And she says she's never in her life been so humiliated by friends at a friend's house. And Latrice says that what reason would she have to ambush her? And Latrice says, Tambra also knew about the DM. She says it's in her confessionals. And I'm just like, but Tambra wasn't involved in the situation. She wasn't at the pool party. So why would you even connect her to being in a situation where, even though, yes, she was around Amanda when Amanda made that comment about the DMs, but she's not really involved in a process. So why would you even kind of connect her with the situation? Now, Letitia brings up Antoinette. So she brings up the fact that Latrice has done little things to her. Like, they say that they're going to be cool and, they're back on good terms. And then Latrice does something again. And so bringing in Antoinette to basically ambush Letitia, things like that. Now she has Amanda. So she feels like Latrice is doing things, like throwing a rock and hiding her hand to kind of get back at her for whatever reason. And Letitia said those questions were aimed basically to target her. And Letitia says, y'all played in my face. And she was like, you had to know those questions were being asked. And Latrice was like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. And there's a possibility maybe she didn't know that those specific questions were being asked, but somebody, the producers or somebody, put that in her assistant's list to make sure that question was asked. And I'm sure the assistant knew what was going on. So I'm just trying to figure out, was a discussion even had? Now, after that, Marie says that Latrice knew the questions. So she believes that Latrice knew the questions. And Letitia asks Latrice, has Glenn ever done something inappropriate? Tell me now. And Latrice gets her drink and just starts gulping it down. And Marie Monroe has to kind of take her drink from her. And she was just like, answer, basically answer. That's what Marie Monroe is. And she was like, well, and Latrice is still like gulping and not, getting able to communicate as if she's trying to not say something. And so Marie Monroe is like, there you go. That's your answer. And we kind of are in a situation where it's to be continued. So there we are with that. So that is interesting. So we are going to see how this proceeds going into next week. It looks like they have some more activities. Of course, the brunch is going to be held at one of Carrie's restaurants down there. And we're going to see them in like their pajamas having conversations. But it's going to be interesting. The big thing is that, Letitia, your husband keeps on doing things over and over and over again. And I know you love the man. You've been with him for so long. But he got to get it together, or you need to make a decision. But at this point, it's she's in a situation where she's going to keep on going back. That's her decision. That's her husband. If you like it, I love it. That's how I feel. Latrice, you just continue to kind of be messy, because even the situation with Akeisha last year, you and Letitia teamed up and the way you guys did her was completely wrong. But that's another conversation. At this point now, we're at the situation where it's Letitia and Latrice having this situation in regards to her husband. We need to get some type of new storyline, something going, because we're getting tired of the Glenn situation. So, overall, I would give the episode probably a B. We're going to see what happens next week. I want you guys to like, comment, and share. I definitely want to continue increasing my channel. I'm going to do some more reviews. I think I'm going to do a review on the Allen Iverson bio that I watched this weekend, which was very, very good. I love AI. Him and Kobe are my faves when it comes to basketball players. So rest in peace, Kobe. But I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Again, this is EDU Diva signing out. Dr. J, talk to you soon.